Ever wonder who's behind all the websites and apps that we use? Like, who are the puppet masters pulling the strings behind the scenes?
Right, right.
That's what today's Duck Dive is all about.
Okay.
We're throwing open the vault on one of these players,
Hmm.
MetaMedia Capital.
Okay.
Ever heard of them?
I have not.
Yeah, they're a little bit under the radar,
Okay.
but they're making some fascinating moves in the digital media world.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So we're going to try to unpack that,
Yeah.
figure out what they're all about,
Yeah, let's do it.
how they operate,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even glean some insights into where this whole digital media landscape is headed.
Okay, cool. I'm intrigued.
So to kick things off,
Yeah.
what exactly is MetaMedia Capital? What do they do?
So they're not like a tech giant you'd know by name,
Hmm.
like a Google or an Apple.
Right.
They're more behind the scenes.
Got it.
They're a private equity firm,
Okay.
which basically means
Yeah.
they take money from investors
Hmm.
and use it to invest in other companies.
Okay.
But they're not looking for just any companies.
Right.
They specifically target ones they believe have huge growth potential.
So they're like venture capitalists?
Kinda, yeah, but on a much bigger scale.
Okay.
Venture capitalists often look for those early stage startups.
Right, those diamond in the rough companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But MetaMedia Capital, it seems like they're more interested in companies that are already somewhat established,
Hmm.
but maybe haven't quite reached their full potential yet.
So they come in with the resources
Yeah.
to like help them explode.
Exactly. Give them that extra push.
Got it.
And what's really interesting is their focus. Technology, media, and entertainment.
That's a powerful combination.
Right. And it seems like they're not just throwing money at these industries.
What do you mean?
They talk a lot about offering industry insights
Okay.
and access to a large talent network.
Now that's interesting because in those industries,
Oh, absolutely.
it's all about who you know.
It's all about connections.
Right.
And having the right people in your corner can make all the difference.
So it's like they're not just offering money, they're offering access.
Exactly. It's a package deal.
That's huge.
Right. And they know it.
They're not exactly shy about it, are they?
Not at all. They call themselves pioneers with a wide-reaching network.
That's some serious confidence.
Right. Like they know what they're doing, and they're not afraid to say it.
That makes me think they're very deliberate, very strategic with their investments.
Absolutely. They're not just throwing darts at a board and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
They're carefully selecting companies they believe in
Right.
and then using all their resources to help those companies succeed.
So they're not just investors. They're
They're-
like partners in a way.
Exactly. They're in it for the long haul.
I like that.
Me too. It's a refreshing approach.
Yeah. So enough with the corporate jargon for a minute.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's talk specifics.
Yeah.
What kind of services are we talking about here? I'm looking at their website, and I see something called financial forecasting and modeling.
Ah, yes.
Even for a data nerd like me, that sounds a little dry.
I know, right? It sounds very corporate.
But it's obviously an essential part of what they do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So break it down for us.
Okay, so imagine you're trying to predict the future,
Okay.
but instead of like a crystal ball,
Right.
you're using spreadsheets and algorithms.
I can get behind that.
Right. So
Yeah.
essentially, financial forecasting is all about analyzing data, looking at market trends,
Mm-hmm.
and using that information to make educated guesses about a company's future profitability.
That's a valuable service.
Oh, it's crucial, especially for investors.
Of course, because you need to know
Exactly.
where to put your money.
Right. You don't want to invest in a company that's about to go belly up.
Makes sense.
So MetaMedia Capital, they use their expertise
Yeah.
to help their portfolio companies make smart financial decisions.
So they're not just looking at the present.
Nope.
They're trying to anticipate the future.
Exactly. They're thinking long term.
I can dig it.
Me too. It's all about strategy.
Now, what about this other service?
Which one?
Funds and capital raising.
Ah, yes. That's where the real private equity muscle comes in.
Okay, I was going to say that sounds a little more exciting than financial forecasting.
Right. This isn't about getting a small business loan.
Right.
We're talking about orchestrating large-scale investments,
Oh.
like millions, even billions of dollars.
So they're working with some serious players.
Absolutely. And that tells you a lot about their ambition.
How so?
Well, it means they're not interested in small-time gains.
Okay.
They're looking for companies that have the potential to make a major impact.
So they're not afraid to take risks.
Not if they believe the payoff is worth it.
Which makes sense given their whole pioneer's image.
Exactly. They want to be at the forefront of innovation.
Okay, so we've got financial forecasting. We've got capital raising.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Well, there's one more service that's particularly relevant to our deep dive today.
Okay, hit me.
global digital advertising opportunities.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing.
Right. And it ties directly into what we were discussing earlier about the increasing importance of a global reach for businesses.
Okay, so walk me through this.
Sure. So,
It's like they're creating these digital clubhouses, not just magazines. And you know what they say? People are much more receptive to what you're offering once they feel like they're part of the in crowd.
right, like a little VIP club. I
Exactly.
like that. And it applies perfectly to advertising these days.
Oh, totally.
It's not enough to just throw ads in people's faces anymore.
It's like we're immune to banner ads at this point.
Right, completely. You have to be more subtle,
Hmm.
more strategic.
So how does that work?
Well, you have to integrate your brand into an environment where people already feel comfortable and engaged.
Okay. So create a community
Exactly.
and then seamlessly weave in the advertising so it feels less like an interruption and more like a natural part of the experience.
That's what MetaMedia Capital is doing with these magazines.
And that brings us back to those global digital advertising opportunities they keep mentioning.
Right. It all ties together.
So do you think that's where we'll see the real convergence of their investment strategy and these media platforms?
Absolutely. It's not hard to imagine them using these engaged communities to connect brands with the perfect audience.
Give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you're a luxury car company
Okay.
and you want to reach people who are already spending tons of money on high-end fashion and travel.
So basically the lavish life crowd.
Exactly. You advertise in lavish life and boom, you're reaching your ideal
Okay.
customer in an environment where they're already primed to be receptive to your message.
It's all very strategic, very deliberate.
Right.
Makes you wonder what their long game is here.
What do you mean?
Well, are they content with just building a portfolio of successful digital magazines?
Okay.
Or are they playing on a larger chessboard?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
we're working with limited information here.
Right. We only have what's on their website.
Exactly.
But we can speculate a little.
That's the best part of these deep dives. Let's speculate.
Okay,
Yeah.
so consider this.
Okay.
MetaMedia Capital,
Mm-hmm.
they're at the intersection of digital media, technology, and entertainment.
True. And those are some of the most rapidly changing industries out there right now.
Exactly. And they seem to have a knack for spotting trends before they become mainstream.
Like that 20% commission they're offering for referrals.
Yes. That tells me they're hungry for expansion.
They want to grow their network as quickly as possible,
Exactly.
which means they must see even bigger opportunities on the horizon.
Right. And they want to be in a position to capitalize on those opportunities.
So what's their end game?
It's impossible to say for sure,
Of course.
but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have their sights set on becoming a major power player in the future of digital media.
Like a digital media empire.
Exactly.
Wow. If that's our goal, they're certainly off to a good start.
They've laid the groundwork.
They got the strategy.
They've got the resources.
And they're not afraid to think big.
Exactly. They're playing the long game.
It's like watching a master class in building a digital empire.
Right. You almost want to take notes.
I am taking notes.
What?
But you know what's interesting?
What's that?
For a company that's so keen on highlighting its wide-reaching network,
Yeah,
they're awfully quiet about the people behind it all.
that's true. We don't know much about their founders, do we?
No, really. Their website's pretty vague on that front.
Interesting.
Like they want to keep a low profile.
Maybe they're just humble.
Maybe, or maybe
Yeah.
there's a touch of calculated mystique at play.
Ooh, I like that.
Like they want to create an air of mystery around themselves.
It definitely works on us.
Right. It makes you even more curious.
Totally. Like, what are they not telling us?
Exactly. It's like we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg with MetaMedia Capital, right?
Right. We've talked about their investment strategy, their magazines, this air of secrecy.
But how does it all fit together? What's the big picture?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But we can look for clues.
Okay, so where do we even begin?
Well, let's go back to those engaged communities they're building around their magazines.
Right, they're not just throwing content out there. They're creating these dedicated spaces for people with shared interests.
Exactly. And that's huge because those communities have the potential to completely change how we experience digital media.
In what way?
Think about it. The lines between content, community, and commerce are already starting to blur.
True, like with social media, you can go from reading an article about a new restaurant to booking a table in like 2 seconds.
Exactly. And that's the kind of seamless experience I can see MetaMedia Capital creating.
So it's not just about reading a magazine anymore.
Right. It's about becoming part of a community, connecting with like-minded people, and ultimately having access to a curated marketplace tailored to your specific interests.
Okay, so they're creating these little ecosystems.
Exactly. And those ecosystems are incredibly valuable both for MetaMedia Capital and for the brands they're partnering with.
Because now brands have a way to reach their ideal customers in a much more targeted and engaging way.
Precisely. It's like a win-win for everyone involved.
Except maybe for traditional advertising agencies.
Well, yeah, they might need to adapt.
It's like the whole influencer marketing thing, but on a much larger scale.
Yeah. Right. It's about building trust and authenticity within these communities so the advertising feels less like an intrusion and more like a natural extension of the experience.
Which makes sense because people are much more likely to buy something if it's recommended by someone they trust, even if that someone is a digital magazine.
Absolutely. And that's where MetaMedia Capital's focus on quality content and curated communities really gives them an edge.
It's like they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Exactly. They're thinking several steps ahead.
Which brings us back to that initial question, their end game.
Right. What's the grand plan?
We might never know for sure, but based on what we've seen today,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's safe to say that MetaMedia Capital is a company to watch.
Absolutely. They're at the forefront of a major shift in how we consume and interact with media.
And they're doing it in a way that's both strategic and innovative.
They've definitely given us a lot to think about.
That's for sure. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into MetaMedia Capital.
A fascinating company.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the future of digital media and how companies like MetaMedia Capital are shaping that future.
Right.
But ultimately, that future is not just being shaped by companies, it's being shaped by all of us.
That's true.
So as you navigate the digital world, I encourage you to be mindful of the communities you're joining, the content you're consuming, and the choices you're making.
Because those choices will ultimately determine the direction of the digital landscape.
Exactly. So be curious, be engaged, and most importantly, be an active participant in shaping the digital world you want to see. And on that note, we'll say goodbye for now. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of MetaMedia Capital.